Right, there we go. We are live. One more week, one more weekend. Welcome everybody to the Ellipsis project. My name is Ronnie GBZ Jr. and this is my project where I attempt to bring together all of the things that I love and love to do, which is music. As you can see, I have a piano in front of me. That is the first clue for you. That's kind of a dead giveaway, right? And also traveling and adventures and nomadic lifestyle and freedom. I think the sound is good, so I'm going to take the headphones off and just continue talking to you this way. But I was just checking. So as you know, so I've been using this lavalier mic. It's been causing me a lot of issues. Today as well, I tried to get it to work and it wouldn't work. So I have my trusty Zoom. Sorry, I hope it wasn't too loud. I did that. I have my trusty Zoom H6 device here, which I'm going to use today. So I hope you can hear my voice just as good. And you know, I'll figure out these the whole mic thing eventually. One thing I actually wanted to start with is that, as you can see, I'm doing recently a lot of updates and a lot of changes in this streaming and the way that I do it. And as you can see now, I am facing you actually, and you can see the piano here, whereas if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that usually I have my camera over there and sort of looking at me from the side. But last week I had this stream with this wonderful girl who joined me for like a session of meditative music and talking about meditation. And when we were preparing the stream here in my home, she was like, "Oh, why don't we move things around? Maybe maybe the audience can see us from the front and all that." And I was like, "Okay, that's actually a good idea." And we worked that, and I think it came out pretty well. So I've decided to do it. So now I'm facing you, kind of. I'm gonna be facing. I have my iPad here, which is another update that I'm working on. I used to have my sheet music in front of me, things like the real book and classical pieces and all that, and now I am trying to move to this iPad with this software for sheet music that I've started using. It's called Mobile Sheets. Just, not very interesting for any of you, if you're not musicians, but if you are, know that, or if you are musicians, you probably already know that there are much better technology nowadays than, just reading it from a book. And I'm late to the party, is what I'm trying to say, which is a kind of a recurring theme. I never kind of wanted to be, like, not wanted, but I was never that kind of person who is connected to what's happening right now in the mainstream. I'm usually either stuck in the past or thinking about the future. But I'm trying to get into all of this thing, which is what I wanted to talk about, this streaming thing. It's new for me, so I keep bringing up the channel up to the level that I can see with other streamers and content creators that are more experienced. And I want to tell you, it's very difficult. It's much more difficult than it looks, because you come here, you see this stream, or you see somebody else's stream, and you go like, hey, they're doing pretty well. Or, maybe you're going, oh, I can't hear them very well. And then you start being like really judgmental. Like, and I'm to blame. Like, I go into that as well. Like, just this week I started following this guy on YouTube. And I commented on his video saying like, oh, I can't hear you too well. You should speak closer to the mic, or you should, work with some software after the recording, because his is not live, is recorded. After the recording, you should push up the gain of the volume. But these things are hard. You need to actually know how to do these things. And I wasn't trying to be judgmental, actually. I was very nice. I was trying to just give some valuable feedback, as I would appreciate, as I appreciate when people give me. But it's very difficult. It's a whole new skill set that you gotta learn. And I'm learning it, so I appreciate your patience with all of the technical difficulties. So, what are we going to do today? Today we have a very exciting stream, for me at least. I hope for you as well, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Ellipsis project. Where, as I said, I combine my love of music and love of traveling and freedom and the nomadic lifestyle. And this is why I purchased a school bus in the United States back in 2020, which is also something I'm going to tell you about today. Some of you probably already know this because you follow me from all of my posts on like school groups and on my page, Ellipsis. But if you don't know it, I'm gonna tell you the story today. And even if you do know the general story, I'm gonna show you a bunch of things that you didn't know before, and start getting you really into the story. The story right now, where the story is right now, is that I am no longer in the U.S. I am in my home country of Israel. This is where I was born and raised. This is literally the house where I was born and raised and spent all of my childhood and early adolescence and so on. But I am going back to traveling really, really soon. So that's another exciting thing, which I already announced last week. But I'm going to have a trip through Europe. Well, the reason I am in Israel, first of all, is because I ran out of my previous visa for the US, and I'm working on a new one, and it's taking much longer than I initially anticipated, because that's just how these things are. If you're not an American and you've ever tried to get a visa for the US, you know what I mean. If you are an American, good for you. You don't need to know any of that. But I am going traveling. I'm going to travel to Europe very, very soon, in just less than a month from now, actually. And I'm going to be in a bunch of countries, and I'm going to travel around, and I'm going to do many exciting things. And hopefully in the meantime, while all this journey is happening, I'm also going to get my new visa approved, and I can go back to the US and to my bus and to the Ellipsis project and all of that. So yeah, that was a long beginning, and believe me, there's more where that came from. But because we are doing music here, let's start with some music. Why don't we? And then we can talk about some more things. And just reminding you that if you're watching this live, you have, wherever you're watching this, if you're watching on Twitch, on YouTube, on Kick, on Facebook, you have the option to use the chat. And you can use the chat to write stuff to me, maybe just like general remarks, maybe questions that you want me to answer, and I can read them live and answer you, or just talk with you, just chat with you, just see what's up with you and how you're doing. So feel free to do that. And let's play something. So let's start with we'll start with a little bit of jazz. I mean, that's what we usually play here. A little bit of jazz, at least on Saturdays specifically. All right. This is All of Me by Seymour Siemens. All right. And that was All of Me by Seymour Simmons. Yeah, all right. Just getting those fingers warmed up. I have a confession to make, which is I did not practice at all this week. It's been a rough week, to be honest. It's been very very busy, very very hectic. I work, as you know, if you've been following my page, etc., etc. I've been working in construction all of these past few months, which is great for me in terms of like, well, the pay is good, the hours are very flexible because I'm just working with this guy who's doing, like, he bought a house for himself, and he's doing the renovations himself. So I work for him, and he's really nice, and he's flexible with me. And I'm gaining a lot of knowledge in construction, which is something I'm very interested in, especially since, you know, I spent the last 2 years building my own home on wheels on a school bus in the United States. More on that later. So yeah, it's great, but it's very difficult physically. If you've ever worked in construction, you know it's not easy. And yesterday was like my first day off after like 3 or 4 days that I had full work days in construction. And I just, you know these days that you have where you try to wake up in the morning like at least 2 or 3 times. Like you try to wake up, you wake up, and then your body goes, nope, nope, you're going back to sleep. That's what's happening right now. You're going back to sleep. And then you go back to sleep, and then you wake up a little later, and you look at the clock, and you go like, oh my god, it's late. I should really wake up. And your body goes, nope, nope, that's not gonna happen, not yet. And then my entire day yesterday was like a little bit out of whack because of that. But today is better. But long story short, I didn't have much time to practice, so I feel very rusty. Hope you don't hear it. You probably don't. It's fine. It's like whatever. But yeah. So it's nice. It's nice to be here. It's nice to talk about all of these things that I wanted to talk to you about today. And I just gotta say, in relation to what I said earlier, that it's like this streaming thing and this online content creation thing is, for me at least, it's a heck of a learning curve. And I think that really only now, because I've been a musician for my entire life, and I've also been, I've lived in New York. I had my own like big jazz fusion band. I did all of the promotion myself on social media and all that. And I thought, I was decent at it, but I never got any traction. I never got much exposure for my band, Any Gamma, which you can still find on Spotify, YouTube, etc., etc. We made some very high quality content, but because it was so high quality, it was very difficult and very expensive to produce, so I couldn't do it consistently. And also, I think I was thinking in a wrong way about this whole thing. Like, I was thinking that I need to create, like, something special that is gonna be viral, and like everyone is gonna suddenly notice me and know who I am, and that's not the way these things work. And it's so funny. So I've started following recently this guy on YouTube, who I like very very much. His name is Andy Edwards. So shout out to Andy if you're probably not watching this, but if any of you watching this and you're interested in music and jazz and art and things like that, please go and follow Andy Edwards, because he is a musicologist, but he speaks in a very he doesn't speak necessarily in a very technical way that only musicians can understand. He speaks in a very communicable way to general audiences, and he talks about music. And I really like his. So I got inspiration from him actually. In two ways. The first thing is that he said something in a recent video that he did about like the narrative that has been spread in our culture about what artists are, specifically performance artists, but I guess it could apply to any artist in general. It could apply actually to a lot of other professions as well, but he was talking specifically about artists. Um, and whereas in our culture we have this narrative that he called the Cinderella theory, which is, I think it's a name of something else, like maybe it's a name of a song, but he adopted it to, for this kind of narrative, his own name for this kind of narrative, which is basically the fact that every artist is like a little Cinderella, that nobody notices ever until the magical fairy godmother comes and like gives them the whatever, the magic spell and the sign of approval that they are now officially big important unique artists. The example that he gave is like the whole culture of American Idol and all that, and characters, people like Simon Cowell, right, who's like the fairy godmother, right, because these young kids, whatever, that want to be performance artists, they come to this show called American Idol, and then the fairy godmother, Simon Cowell, or whatever, the rest of the judges are the fairies that go like, yeah, you are special. We want to pick you, and now you're gonna become famous because we have, we've put our stamp of approval over you as an artist. And it's complete BS. This entire narrative is complete BS, because it never really works like that. It never does. It even if you do go to American Idol and you do get to the top place or whatever, which is very slim chances, right? If you're just looking at the statistics, and it doesn't matter how good you are. Look, every single artist, I've met so many of them, everyone has talent. It's not about talent. Talent, I always say that talent is like garbage. Like, it's just everywhere. So it never really works that way. It's never like, even if you do get to those places where these supposedly self-crowned fairy godmothers put their sign of approval over you, you still need to work very hard to build your audience. And I think this is what I haven't been doing for all of my career up until now. And now I'm starting to do that, and you are this audience that I'm building. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for watching this. So that's the first thing that I heard this guy Andy saying on his video, which I really liked. And the second thing is that the way that he records his videos is that he just, and he says it, right? He just gets into his studio in his home. He has like a general idea of what he wants to talk about, and he just presses the record button and starts talking, right? And there's no like script, there's no like detailed plan, there's no like, oh, I'm gonna go for exactly 10 minutes about this subject, and then he just talks, right? And as a result of that, you get a lot of things that are maybe, some people would see them as unprofessional. For example, in one of his videos that I watched, his phone went off in the middle of the video, and he was like, oh, okay, sorry, my phone went off, I'm not gonna answer it. And then a couple of minutes later, the phone went off again, and he was like, oh, I'm sorry, And I was like, when I was hearing it, I was like, oh man, like, he should really edit it out. Like, this, it's just not professional when you're watching somebody's video and, their phone goes off. And then in another video that I watched a little bit later, the phone went off again. And this time he addressed it. This time he was like, hey, this is already the second video that I'm making that my phone goes off in the middle of the video. And he said, a lot of people have told me, hey, you should just put your phone on Do Not Disturb, or you can edit it out, which is what I've said. And he said, you know what? No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because for me, and he is speaking as a musician and a musicologist and a jazz lover and all that. He said, for me, doing this thing with you is like jazz. It's improvisation. I don't know what is going to happen. I'm just sitting here, I'm pressing the record button, and I start talking. And if my phone goes off, it goes off. It's life. It's part of life. Life is here. It's happening while I'm talking. So, that's just what it is. So it brought me inspiration, because I was like, okay, if he can do that kind of thing, maybe I don't need to be so, because I tend to really overthink it, right? I tend to be like, oh, I need to plan every stream to the minute and know exactly what I'm going to talk about. And, maybe that's not the case. I don't know. You will be the judge. If you like listening to me ramble, you're going to stay tuned to this channel. And if not, then no. But hopefully you will. And this guy, Andy, has more followers than me. So evidently people still like that kind of thing, that kind of content. So thank you very much, Andy. And don't worry, guys, because my phone is always on Do Not Disturb. I'm that guy who just never has his phone on, like, ringing mode, just because I hate to be bothered by rings and notifications and all that. My philosophy is I come to the phone when I need the phone. I don't want to, and I'm just pointing in my phone here, sorry, but my philosophy is I'm going to come to the phone when I need it. I don't want the phone to come to me and disturb my life when I don't need it. But whatever, to each his own. Wow, I've talked a lot, and I promise that the next thing that we are going to do is we're gonna move on to my story about the Ellipsis project and how I arrived to Phoenix, Arizona in 2020 and bought this huge school bus that I've never driven anything like before, and I was scared shitless. And but today is also going to be about what I did in Phoenix, which is a lovely city, and I spent 2 weeks there, and I really enjoyed that place. So I'm going to talk all about that and show you some pictures and tell you some exciting things that I did there and I saw there, and talk about art. But all of that after some more music, which is going to be, well, what did I want to do? Oh, yeah, okay. All right. I mean, it's a classic, but it really fits into, yeah. I enjoy playing this song, and I guess I'm prefacing this because it's a song that is kind of hated by jazz musicians because it's so ubiquitous and cliche. But yeah, this is Autumn Leaves by Joseph Cosma, and I like it. So Okay, alright. So that was Autumn Leaves by Joseph Cosma. Good. Hope you're enjoying this stream so far. Once again, the Ellipsis project. My name is Ronnie GBZ Jr. Just before we move on, housekeeping, right? Just mentioning, trying to grow this channel. So if you are watching this channel and you are not yet a follower of this channel, please do. I am live every single weekend on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturdays, it's 12 p.m. Eastern Time. On Sundays, it's 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So those are both New York times. Even though I am traveling all around the world. Right now I'm in Israel. Sometimes I'm in the United States, New York, California, many other places in between. Now I'm going to be in Europe for a couple of months. But the times are New York times. Just because. I don't even know why. But yeah. So 12 p.m. on Saturday. 11 a.m. on Sunday. Eastern time. Make your adjustments based on wherever you are in the world, and you can see these streams wherever you find your live stream content, whether it is on Facebook or Instagram. I'm just pointing at the icons above me, on YouTube, on Twitch, on kick.com, and there's one last little circle there at the end, which is the icon of TikTok. Which is another thing that I've been very, very hesitant to get into, this TikTok thing. And I know I'm showing my age, maybe not my physical age, rather than my mental age. I mean, I'm in my 30s, so I guess I am technically a little bit old for the TikTok thing, right? To be on the bandwagon. But, just to be clear, I've always been this way. Like, even when I was in my 20s or even in my teens, I was that guy who is not very interested in being in what's going on right now in the mainstream. I was never interested in that. As a musician as well, I was always interested in things that were either way before my time, like jazz and progressive rock and classical music, right? Or things that are probably in the future. Like, I don't know, like microtonal music, which is very out there, and it's probably going to take at least a decade or two until somebody manages to bring it into the mainstream, maybe even me. Yeah, I've always been this guy who's not updated in what's going on right now. And that's fine, but, I kind of have to. So now I opened the TikTok. There is nothing on there. It's just like an account, but it's gonna start being active really, really soon. I promise. I'm gonna upload stuff on there. So let's talk about this thing that happened in my life that has led me to this, to what you're seeing right now, to the point where I am right now, where I am doing this, and all of my plans and my vision for what this channel is going to be about, and what this project, Ellipsis, is going to be about, because the channel is only like a small part of it. The live stream channel and the social media and all that. Before I do that, I'm gonna have a drink of water here. If you'll forgive me, because water is important. And I'm gonna tell you that back in the year 2020, which is already 3 years ago, hard to believe, but in the year 2020, I don't know if you guys remember, but something happened in that year, something that has to do with global pandemic, right? I hope you've been around for that. I don't know if it got to you. There was a global pandemic. Do you remember that? Yeah. It didn't, okay, so I was never scared of the pandemic itself. I grew up in this sort of, well, first of all, I guess, I am lucky, and I have to admit I am lucky to be generally a very healthy person. Even when I'm ill, it usually goes away in a few days, and my body just gets over it. And I've never had any background conditions and all that, so I'm lucky in that respect. And I was never in a risk group for COVID, and I don't even know if I got it. Maybe I did get it at some point, and I didn't even notice it because I was asymptomatic or something like that, or I thought it was something else. But the effects of the pandemic did affect me personally, in fact, very, very much, because I was living in New York at the time. I am originally from Israel, which is where I am now. And I've always done music, but at that time I decided that I wanted to do acting school. I wanted to go and study acting, and I didn't want to do it in Israel for a number of different reasons. So I decided to do it in New York, and in 2016 I got accepted to this school in New York, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I moved to New York, and I spent 2 years in that school, and I finished in 2018, and I liked acting. I still love acting. I still miss it. I want to do more of it, but I really didn't want to do all this like auditioning game of just hustling and going around to audition after audition after audition, just like praying that someone will notice me and pick me once again. This whole Cinderella narrative thing of like this big Broadway producer is gonna suddenly notice me and pick me to this huge Broadway show, which actually happened to my personal friend, but it did not end well for him at all, which is just goes to show that this Cinderella theory narrative never works. So I didn't want to do that. So I got into music. I started my band. I did all that. Come 2020, I had my band, which wasn't making me any sort of money, but that was okay because I also had a side business that I started. I founded myself with my roommate, and I operated this like business for just renting out like rooms for tourists on Airbnb and short-term vacation rentals and all that. And it was a good business. It was a successful business, even though it was very small, but it got me the income that I needed to keep my artistic life going and invest in my artistic projects. And so you probably already realized when I said Airbnb and tourists and all that, that when COVID came, that all went down a toilet. It wasn't no more. I remember the day that the then President Trump declared or announced the travel ban, right? That they're gonna stop all the flights to the U.S. and quarantine and all that. And the next day, I just had all of my reservation canceled, and I was like, "Oh shit, what am I gonna do now?" And I managed to survive. I managed to find a way to close the business without incurring too many losses, and I can really say that I got off relatively easy, but it was a very hard time, and I couldn't meet with my band anymore, and we couldn't rehearse, and we couldn't gig, and we couldn't record, and it was a very difficult time, and it was a very despairing time, and I was just starting my artist visa, so I had to do a lot of stuff, in that time that I had the artist visa, but now I couldn't because of COVID. So it was a very difficult time in my life. I went into depression, which was probably one of the roughest depressions I have had since a very, very long time. And my girlfriend broke up with me, which is it happened that so it wasn't related. It happened like a month or two before COVID, but it was just one more thing. We were together for 4 years, so her leaving me was a really big hit. So I was depressed, and I was feeling what's the word that I'm looking for? I was feeling like I was in a prison of a sort, And it wasn't so much the whole like quarantine thing and staying at home, because to be honest with you, I never had a problem with staying at home. I actually I was always a kid, and later of course a grown up who is very self-centered in his own little world inside his own head. So I never had a problem being alone and staying at home and doing all of my stuff that I like to do. And of course I need social contact as much as any human being. And I do have, of course, friends and people who supported me throughout that period. Um, but I felt like I was in a prison in my own mind, because I had so many plans and I had so many things I wanted to do, and all of a sudden I couldn't do them. And the thing that I really discovered about myself at that time, and the thing that I think if you are an artist or if you are a creative, any type of a creative person or personality, you're going to identify with that without creation, our soul is dying. It's just it's not in a good place where we don't when we don't have the ability to create like we want to create. So it was very tough. It was very difficult, and I felt in a prison, and all I wanted was to get out, and I didn't even know where, but just get out, just you know. And I was living in this New York apartment, and the neighbors were horrible. They were driving me crazy, and blah 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 blah. So I just wanted to escape. I just wanted to run away. And then an idea came into my head, and it's an idea that I sort of had before. I was flirting around with the idea of maybe buying a van and sort of having like a van that I can travel in and still have my apartment in New York but travel around. That was before the pandemic. And then in the pandemic I was like, okay, I think that's my ticket to freedom, if I can do something like that, if I can live this sort of lifestyle of just traveling in a van and being a nomad, which is sort of what I've been my entire life, in a way, right? In spirit. I've always loved traveling. I've always loved discovering new places and changing all the time, changing scenery, changing people. And I researched it, and I went on Facebook groups, and I talked to some people, and then at some point I just discovered that people, because I was thinking, oh man, but a van is very small. Like I want to have my stuff. Like I want to have my music stuff even. Like a van is a very small place to live in for a long time. And then I found out that people also do this like nomad thing in school buses, and they are called schoolies, which some of you watching probably are a part of the community, which I am now a part of the community. But that's when the idea sort of came of, I'm gonna go back to the US because unfortunately I couldn't keep sustaining my life in New York. Rent was expensive. I didn't have any income, so I came back to Israel for a couple of months. Not a good decision, but the only one that I could make because it was a very bad time to be in Israel during that time. Not that today is such a good time, but whatever. We're not gonna get into that. And I came back to Israel, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go back to the U.S. and I'm gonna buy a school bus, and I'm gonna start living in the school bus, and I'm gonna renovate it myself because I had no idea how to do this kind of project, but I was sure that I can do it because I am this kind of guy who has like almost a kind of a naive stupidity about the project that I take upon myself, because I take this project that is so huge and so complicated, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never done anything like it, and I'm just saying to myself, oh yeah, whatever, I'm gonna do it in a month or in 2 months tops. Like I was so naive. And I did that, and I flew to Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, because I heard that that's one of the best places to buy used school buses because of the weather there, that it's not very humid, it's very dry, so the buses that are secondhand are not they don't get a lot of rust. And also I heard that there's this dealership, AAA buses, that sell buses a lot to a lot of people from the schoolie community and for people who want to do this kind of thing, this kind of conversion. So I said, okay, I'm gonna fly to Phoenix and I'm gonna do this thing, and I did. I flew to Phoenix on November 28th of 2020, which is almost, yeah, 2.5, well, yeah, 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago. And that's where my journey began. That's when my journey that I'm currently on and why I'm doing this entire channel, that's when it began. So I'm gonna very, very soon show you a bunch of pictures from that time and from my trip to Phoenix, and we're just gonna talk a little bit about Phoenix because I've been there 2 weeks and I really liked the city. I thought it was an awesome city. I really liked it for many reasons, which I'm gonna show you today. But before we do that, we're gonna play some music. So let's do Body and Soul. Yeah. Body and Soul by Johnny Green. It's this ballad, and you know I love this electric piano sound. Alright, Body and Soul by Johnny Green. Thank you very much. So that was Body and Soul by John Green, one of my favorite ballads to play. It's just so rich. It's just so I can't like it's hard for me to describe it without getting into like food analogies, but the flavor of the harmony of this piece is so rich, and you can see. I mean, I'm not gonna show you the iPad. Maybe it's not gonna even mean anything to you if you're not a musician, but there's so many chords. There's so many harmonies. There's and like the movement of the harmony here is so it's spicy in a way, but it's also very like smooth and like soothing and very ballad like. It's not like a harsh bebop or like something a harmony that is just kind of a little bit jarring. No, it's like very nice and smooth, but it's still sophisticated. It's still like interesting. Great jazz, I think. And here, third time this live stream that I'm remembering something that I watched this guy on YouTube, Andy Edwards, saying that the narrative of how jazz is portrayed in popular culture and what it means to listen, like to if you're watching a movie, like a scene in a movie, and there's like a piece of jazz playing in the background, it usually gives off this vibe of like sophistication and a little bit of sultriness maybe, but also in a very kind of aloof and hard to get way. And I think the harmony of this song is just conveys it very very well. But it's still very nice, and it's still very it still has a lot of emotion in it. It's just not like outbursting emotion for all to see. It's more under the surface kind of thing, as it most often is in human interaction. All right, so let's go to Phoenix. Let's take a trip to Phoenix. So Phoenix, the capital city of the state of Arizona, which is located in the southwest of the United States, actually bordering Mexico, the country of Mexico, on the bottom of it. And if you're an American, you probably knew all of that. So I'm not gonna bother you with like just like descriptions of Phoenix. I'm gonna talk about what I did there, which is I came there in order to buy this bus, and I gave myself 2 weeks, and I rented an Airbnb for 2 weeks, and I said in those 2 weeks I need to get a bus. And here's this thing, right? For people who get into the schoolie community, a lot of them are Americans, or in Europe they do it as well, but my point is they are citizens of the country where they are doing this thing. So if you are an American living in America and you have a home in America, maybe you're gonna and maybe it's even a home like out of the city, or maybe people who have a home out of the city that has like a backyard and all that. So you can spend some time going to like public auctions and going to like school districts that maybe are trying to get rid of their school buses, because there's this thing of beyond a certain amount of miles they have to get rid of it, because even if the bus works perfectly well, there are certain rules and regulations, and it makes a lot of sense because these things are meant to drive little kids around, right? So for safety reasons, even if they work perfectly well after a certain amount of miles, they just take them out of service, and they sell them for cheap. So you might have the time to go and look for these things, and really really take a lot of time, sometimes even months, to search until you find a good bus that you're interested in, and then you, as we say in the community, pull the trigger, right? You buy the bus. I couldn't do any of that. A, because I had no idea what I was doing, right? but also because, and look, I have read about like what are the best engine types and transmission and what you should look for, and but it's so like like seeing it, like reading it from somebody else and then experiencing it for yourself, two very different things. So, and I didn't have the time to do any of that because I'm not an American and I'm not a citizen and I don't have a home, especially not in Arizona. And I just had to get going. I just had to buy a bus very quickly. So I heard there's this place called AAA Buses. It's a bus dealership in Phoenix, Arizona. And it's run by this guy called Tony, who's a very nice guy. I heard a lot of nice things about him from the schoolie community. That's how I got there. And he lives in a school. He has a few school buses himself that he converted, and he loves this idea of the schoolie lifestyle. So and he's not just a random guy selling school buses. Of course, it's his business, but he actually cares about the lifestyle and about the community. So I felt like I could trust this dealership to sell me a bus that I would know for sure works, and I could get it in those 2 weeks, and just start going with it. And that's what I wanted. And I paid a higher price for it because buying from a dealership is more expensive. But in return, I got this bus, which I called Ellipsis, that works. And I can say, since then I have driven it 11,500 miles all across the US, from west to east and back to the west, and knock on whatever, wood, piano, metal, whatever, I haven't had any issues with that. So good for you, AAA buses, for selling people really, really good buses. Yeah. And but before we get into that, let me show you some pictures from Phoenix. And actually, and today I have to say it is gonna be mostly about Phoenix. Tomorrow I am going to, so on my live stream tomorrow, which I remind you is at, yes, you're 100% right, it's 11 a.m. Eastern time, tomorrow on Sunday, May 28th. So tomorrow on the live stream, I'm gonna talk more about when I got the bus and the drive to New Mexico, because that's another thing, right? I bought the bus. That was the first step, but the next step is to convert it, like to build it, to gut it out and renovate it and do all that stuff. And I didn't have a place to do that either. I didn't have a home where I can just park it in the backyard or like a ranch or something. So I had to find a way to do that. And tomorrow is going to be about that. But today is going to be about Phoenix. So now, what is going to happen is I'm going to start my screen sharing here. So, give me a second. There's some logistics to do here, but there we go. So now you can see my screen, hopefully. This is not what I wanted you to see right now, but this is what I wanted to see. These are my folders with all the pictures from the Phoenix trip in during December of 2020. And I'm just gonna show you some things. First of all, this is the picture that I took on the airplane on the way to Phoenix. Actually, to New York. I flew from Israel to New York, and in New York I took a connection to Phoenix. But this is the plane from Israel to New York, which I've taken many times in my life, and it's about like maybe 12, 13-hour flight, sometimes less actually, it's more maybe like 11-hour, 12-hour flight. But I've never seen it like this, and the plane was totally empty, and of course, you understand why, it was during COVID, right? And it was during the very like high point of COVID. This was December of 2020, so this was when the entire world was on like lockdown mode and no one was flying anywhere, and I just got a whole airplane all to myself. I've never had anything like that happen in my life, and probably will never have anything like that happen ever again. So I had to take a picture, two pictures actually. So that, yeah, you can just see like empty chairs. Like there is, I mean, there were I think maybe there were some people. Like I'm sure I wasn't the very last person on this flight. There were probably like two or three more people or a few more handful here and there. But as you can see, it was totally empty. So that was an experience. Quite nice experience, I have to say, except for the fact that I had to wear the mask and I had to do all the annoying things that we all had to do during COVID. But I could spread myself on like four airplane seats in the middle of the airplane and just go to sleep for the entire flight. And it was so luxurious that it was like being on first class without actually paying first class ticket and just getting the entire airplane to myself, which is great. No crying babies on that plane, I can tell you. The one plane I took in my life with no crying babies, because otherwise, as you know, it's the law that on every airplane there needs to be at least one crying baby. It's the law. If there is an airplane without a crying baby, they will bring crying babies especially in order to fulfill that law. And if there are babies on the plane and they're not crying, somebody's gonna go to them and like poke them and punch them until they cry. So it's the law on every flight. On this flight, no crying babies. So good for me. So yeah, and then I landed in Phoenix. So I have this thing where when I land in a place, I usually like to go out, like if I'm renting an Airbnb or something like that, and I get up, like I check in the night before, and then I wake up the next morning and I go out of the Airbnb and I start exploring the place where I'm at, because that's what I like doing. I like exploring every single place that I happen to be in. So I get out and I notice something cool and I just take a picture, and it's the first picture that I take in this new place. So this is that picture that I'm going to show you, which is just a street, right? But in that area, I think, and it was just outside of my Airbnb, very nice area, and there was some sort of like an artist collective kind of place, that this entire area was very like artistic and like cool, and well, Phoenix in general, I have to say, one of the reasons I like the city, and one of the reasons I like American cities in general, even though they have a lot of faults as well, but there are always some people who are doing like quirky things out in the city. So here you can see this. I hope you can hear me well with the mic when I'm turning my head, but I'm gonna lower it a little bit just so it's easier to get my voice. You can see here, like that they put these sort of coats, I don't know, made out of yarn, just covering the tree, and yeah, oh shit. Sorry. Yeah. Just this sort of a quirky, artistic sweater that somebody knitted for this tree. And then you can see a bunch more stuff in here. In that tree, there's also a bunch of like colorful artistic stuff. I hope you can see it well. So it was very cute, and I wanted to take a picture of that because I like art. Sorry, I'm gonna move my. Well, let's see. I'm just trying to work out the. Yeah. Okay. And then so a couple more pictures, right? This is This is not actually. I don't think there's a lot of school buses here, but I don't think. I don't remember actually. This might be the AAA parking lot where I bought, but I don't think it is. Maybe it was, but maybe it was just like a place with a lot of school buses that I saw on the way, and I took a picture because I was like, hey, I'm going to buy a school bus, so yeah, school bus is cool. It was the first time really seeing, like, you have to remember, I wasn't born and raised in the US, so I never actually, as a kid in Israel, I went to high school, but we didn't have, I mean, I went to school, I went to high school, but we didn't have yellow buses like this. We had, you know, other kinds of buses. So I never got like the school bus experience when I was a kid. This is just a cool graffiti. I really like doing like photos of graffitis in cities that I get to. You can see Prince here, and it's cool because his eyes are like those traffic mirrors, right? That are also utilized for keeping cars safe, I think, or glared like it glares to drive. Never mind. This is just some. So I went to this place in the middle of Phoenix. I forget what it's called, but it's a place where there's this old kind of the old town something, and there were just like a bunch of people there that are really like they just struck me as, you know, I'm gonna say something, and I don't mean it in a bad way, and I don't want it to come off as if I mean it in a bad way. But they looked very American to me, and this is something that, as a foreigner, right, as someone who was born and raised in Israel, you know, like, I guess you have this sort of stereotypical kind of notion of an American white family with all of the parents and the kids, and everyone is so like nice and beautiful, and like and obviously it's like a fantasy, right? I've gotten to know many types of Americans over the years from all over the US. Nobody is typical, nobody is stereotypical anywhere you go. But when I saw this, like, so I'm gonna show you this next picture, and it's not showing the people's faces, so I don't feel like I was too much of a creep taking these pictures. And I was far away. I zoomed a lot to get this close. I didn't actually get close to the people, but it was like this couple, probably husband and wife, and they also have a kid in front of them, and there was this photographer who was taking their pictures. It was just so, like, I don't know, it was just so, like, cliche in a way. And it was so, like, they're trying to get, like, the right pose for the kid, and later they're gonna upload it on social media and say, like, oh, wow, we have, or maybe they're, I don't know, maybe it's, like, it's probably not their wedding or anything, they're not dressed like it, but maybe their anniversary or something like that. I want to do these pictures. It's a little silly, if you ask me. But once again, I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just it's funny. Like, I saw it and I was like, oh man, it's such a stereotypical thing to see these people out and about in this very pastoral kind of place, like, ooh, the old town, and everything is green and nice and whatever, and we're gonna take a picture and show everyone how happy our lives are, how picture perfect our lives are, even though they never are. Life is very messy. I don't know if you know that. Do you know that? I don't know if you know that. So yeah, okay, moving on, right? Another picture of this American family with all the kids and all that, whatever. Okay, and this is just, I went to this place in the center of town. I went to eat something, and they had this little fire thingy going, which I really liked. I've always liked these things, and I actually have a fantasy of one day doing this kind of thing on the roof of my bus of Ellipsis. and having this, because this is actually not too hard to do. It's just there's like a pipe and there's gas coming out of it. Probably some kind of I guess it's propane or something like that, and you just light it and you put all these stones around it just for the decoration, and it's really really cool. So I want to do something like that at some point. And I had like my American meal with fries and yeah. And that's it. So that's from just going out and about in Phoenix. I just, I took a few pictures. I've deleted a lot of them as well. These are the good ones. Just to sort of convey my experience there. And I'm gonna move on to, so whenever I go to a city, right, and I think whenever anyone goes to a city, there are things that you gravitate towards, there are things that you like to see. And if you keep following this channel, which I definitely hope you do, you will see that now, as I'm going to travel to Europe, and I'm going to be in many, many well-known and very cool cities like Rome and Florence and in Italy and Geneva and Switzerland and Berlin, Germany, Prague, Czech Republic, all these very, very cool cities. You're going to see what I gravitate towards. And a lot of it is about science and art. And of course music as well. But music is a little harder to take a picture of, obviously. But you can definitely take pictures of art and science. So in Phoenix, there was a science museum. I'm actually not going to show any of that because the pictures honestly aren't that good. But I am going to go to the Phoenix Art Museum pictures that are very interesting. There were some very interesting things in the Phoenix Art Museum that I would like to show you guys. Let's start from, okay. And here I'm also going to do a little bit of an experiment, something else that I wanted to try and add into these streams and see how it works. So these are pictures from an exhibition that was showing at the time at the Phoenix Art Museum, it's called Elemental by an artist. Her name is Teresita Fernandez. And I didn't know her before. I had no idea. I just came to the museum and saw what was, and I was really impressed by the work. I was really impressed by the art. Sorry, I'm gonna just start with a photo so you have something to look at while I'm talking. So this is kind of how I took this picture from a staircase that was a little higher up, and you can see the whole, like, I guess the entrance hall to the exhibition. And there's some minimalism in it, but the installations are also very big, which is something that I like. And I'm gonna be, well, let me say it like this, right? I grew up with a mother who is an artist. She's a potter, and she loves art, of course. So when I was growing up, we went to a lot of museums in Israel and outside of Israel when we were traveling and all that. So I went to a lot of museums. I never really got into it. Like, I remember as a kid going to a museum with my mom, and it's not that I was necessarily bored. I don't think I was bored. And I liked seeing the work. I liked seeing the artwork, but I could never understand why people stop and stare at it. Like, for me, I was, looking at an artwork, saying, okay, that's nice, and moving on. Like, I never stayed in front of an artwork. Like, I sometimes see people just standing there and thinking. And I guess, and this is something I've talked with a friend of mine recently who is an artist, a visual artist, and I said, visual art just just never hit me the way that, for example, music does, right? I can start crying at the drop of a hat, or get very emotionally excited just by hearing like a few passages of music that I like. Not sometimes without even any words or lyrics. And I can get very emotional and very excited, and feel like tears welling up my throat, and I can't speak, and it just touches me somewhere. I've never had the same experience with visual art. I've never stood in front of a painting in a museum and started crying. I don't know. It just doesn't move me that way. That being said, though, I have come to a point where now, as I am older, I do get it more. And when I see artwork like this by Teresita Fernandez, it impresses me a lot. First of all, in the size of it, because I think it's very difficult. Okay, I'm just gonna show you, right? So this this little center thing. Oh, by the way, you're gonna see me do this a lot, right? I try to take like big pictures of like seeing a lot of things like this and this, and then I get closer. So this big circly thing at the center is actually made up of all of these threads that, I came really close and I took this picture, which is very nice, I think. These are just threads in like different colors, like yarn, that are that the artist put in this way, and it's so impressive. I mean, I don't even know. So for a lot of artists that do like really big stuff, they don't do it all themselves, right? A very very well-known example of this is the Chinese artist Ai Weiwei, which I have seen a couple of exhibitions of as well, and he also very impressed me. But it's known that he has the concept, and then he hires people to do the very small detailed work for him, like maybe hanging those yarn wires. So I don't actually know if she did it herself or she had people doing it for her. I'm assuming that because I read a little bit about her, because she is a well-known artist, she probably has people working for her, which is great. I don't think it diminishes from the art at all. It actually even makes it better in a way, because you're not just doing it for yourself, you're also supporting other people and you're paying them to do work so they can bring money to their families. So it is great, and it is very impressive. So, this is just like this is a metal plate that has like etchings on it. And I just took a picture of it because I wanted to show my friend that I talked about before, who is an artist, Liav. He was actually in one of the live streams maybe a month ago. Very good friend of mine for a lot of years. So he used to do the same kind of technique of etching with fire on metal plates. He doesn't do it anymore, but he did some really awesome work with it. And then I saw her, this artist, Mrs. Fernandez, doing this kind of artwork. So I was like, oh cool, I gotta take a picture and send to him. And there seems to be a lot in this exhibition about fire. This is something a little different, but these are all these stones that are hanging from this little ceiling fixture, and of course there's a close-up picture where you can see. I also love taking those close-up pictures because I really like the texture of things sometimes as a thing in and of itself to look at, sometimes without even any relation to the bigger work. So that's very cool. This is an interesting work, and it's actually very interesting for me because I was looking at it just today in preparation for this stream, and I just noticed something that I haven't seen before when I was in the exhibition, or even after that when I was looking at the picture. So as you can see, of course, this is a map of the United States, right? And it's made of coal, actually. As I said, a lot of these works have to do with fire and with burning and all that. I have no idea what it signifies necessarily. Maybe it doesn't even signify anything specific, but that's the work. But today I also noticed that, yeah, this is the map of the United States. That's very clear. But then you have all these dots around it, and then you have this big blob of dots that actually creates the map of the country of Mexico. And you can actually see this little thingy here is Baja California, and the whole thing, and this is and here would be Cancun. And it's not in a normal relation to the U.S., right? Usually it's like I guess this part, this part would be underneath here. But it's very cool. I just noticed that this is the map of the U.S., but then also like a ghost map of Mexico. Once again, I have no idea what it signifies, or maybe it doesn't even signify anything in particular, but it's an amazing work, and it's very big as well. It's on the entire wall. I'm gonna go back just to the beginning here. This is another. So, based on what I read, this whole exhibition is, well, you know what? I'm gonna start doing this experiment that I wanted to do, which is I am gonna use my lovely co-host today. So you thought I was here by myself, but actually no, I have a co-host. His name is ChatGPT. Maybe you've heard about him. It, whatever, she, her, they, I don't know the pronoun. But ChatGPT, of course, the AI, right? So what I'm going to do, because I want to tell you about this exhibition, but then maybe I don't have all the details, and I couldn't be bothered to research them because I'm lazy. No, I'm not actually lazy, but you know, it's a nice experiment that I thought I would do, which is I'm just gonna write, hey, please tell me a little more about an exhibition by the artist Teresita Fernandez called Elemental. And then we'll get some answer. Oh, okay. No, apparently it doesn't have any. Okay, it has some information about the artist. Okay. I'm gonna stop for a second, and I'm just gonna say, give me some details about the artist Teresita Fernandez and her career. Please keep it to one short, easy to read paragraph. Okay. And then, because I know that you're not gonna just sit down and read all of that, I have my voice-to-speech software here. Sorry, text-to-speech software. Let's listen to what ChatGPT has to say about Teresita Fernandez. It's an interesting experiment, but I hope you'll bear with me. So maybe I'll show you some pictures while this is going. It's gonna be interesting.
Teresita Fernandez is a renowned American artist known for her large-scale, immersive installations that reinterpret natural phenomena and landscapes. Born in 1968 in Miami to Cuban parents, she studied at Florida International University and received an MFA from Virginia Commonwealth University. Her innovative work, often employing materials like reflective minerals, glass, and steel, examines the interplay between space, light, and the viewer's perception. Fernandez is a recipient of a MacArthur Genius Fellowship, and her work has been exhibited in prestigious institutions worldwide, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York and the Museum of Contemporary Art in Miami.
Okay, Nice. So now you know more about Teresita Fernandez. Hope this was, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool. So, with all of the details, I can have ChatGPT helping me here and giving you some details. All right, we're already an hour and a half in, but I'm going to go. I'm going to just keep on going. I still have some things I wanted to show you, and then maybe we'll play another bit of music, and then we'll end the live stream. But yeah, so very nice kind of work by Teresita Fernandez. Very evocative of, I don't even know what, but it is evocative of something. Which is, I like it. I like the visual aspect of it. And I took some pictures of some pottery in the Phoenix Art Museum, and as I said, my mom is a potter, has been her whole life. I was born and raised, as I said, in this very house that I'm in right now, and in the floor below me, there is a pottery studio, which my mom started with her colleague. They bought the studio together, and they built the house on top of the studio. That was their plan their entire time. So I've grown up around pottery and around clay, and I never really did, I played a lot with clay, like I made little sculptures, but I never really did pottery on like the turning wheel. I do kind of like I've done. I was taught a little bit how to do, like, even when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I was put on the turning wheel, and they taught me like some basic stuff. So whatever, I might have some innate knowledge just from seeing it my entire life, but I'm not a well-skilled potter, is what I'm trying to say. But I do appreciate pottery, so there was some cool stuff there. For example, this ancient pottery that you can see here, and the tag here on the bottom says that this is a Neolithic painted pot, and it's estimated to be somewhere between 2900 to 1200 BC. So that's quite a while ago, at least like 3,000 years ago, and it's quite amazing that they did this stuff back then. It's, well, very skilled work, and they did it obviously with much more primitive tools and knowledge than what we have today. So that's always kind of cool to see, and just think about the fact that once upon a time there was a person who did this thing. Like, they sat down and they made the thing and they painted it, and it was a functional thing, probably. It was a pot for like carrying liquids, waters, whatever, wine, I don't know. And here's another one, which is a cocoon-shaped pottery jar from. By the way, this is Chinese, Western Han Dynasty, somewhere around 1st century BC up to 1st century AD. So once again, very cool to see. Now we're gonna move to something a little more modern, though not modern by any means. But still, this is some Chinese pottery from the 17th century, and this is, of course, the famous porcelain, which is the clay that was invented in China, and it was just a breakthrough at the time because it was so unique, it was so white and pure, right? It had this very royal kind of impression, a feeling to it, and they painted it with this traditionally this blue ink, and it's some very detailed, and I'm going to show you some close-up pictures where you can see the detail even better, but some very detailed like scenery of like stuff that was happening. And of course they weren't by any means the first ones to do it, right? The Romans had scenery on their pots and everything literally hundreds and thousands of years before that, before the 17th century. But it's just so, like, this work is so great. And I also have, I guess I have like a soft spot for porcelain as well, because my mom works with porcelain a lot, and she makes all these cups and pots from porcelain. And the thing is with porcelain is that if you do it really well, if you're a very good potter, you make it very thin. And you have to be a good potter to do it, because it's a very difficult clay to work with and keep thin without breaking apart. And you can get it to a place where it's almost starting to be see-through. Like, my mom would show me how she would make pots from porcelain and then shine light through them, and you could see the light shining through the clay, because it was just so thin and like see-through. So I have a soft spot for porcelain, is what I'm trying to say. And I took these pictures. I take a lot of these pictures also to just send to my mom and be like, hey, look, I went to this place and I took pictures of pots. Let's see, yeah, there's some details. So there's some flowers. This is very, very beautiful. Some decorations, right? Some more pots. And of course there are animals. Of course there's a dragon, right? Chinese pottery has to have a dragon on it. And yeah, and some people, some Chinese people enjoying whatever it is they do. Actually, I think the tag underneath this pot said that this was about manly pursuits, or like men enjoying manly pursuits, something like that. So they're probably doing, like, I don't know, hunting. I don't know what are manly pursuits. I don't even know. Am I a man? I don't know. But yeah, so a lot of detail. It's very cool. Okay, we already saw that. Now moving on to modern times. This is modern Japanese pottery. Very, very cool. Once again, soft spot for Japanese pottery because of my mom, because she goes a lot to Japan and she has a lot of Japanese potter friends. And in this area of the world, by the way, China, Japan, South Korea, all this Asian half of the world, they treat pottery in, I think, a lot more respect and admiration than they do in the West. And it's very evident, I think. So the pottery here, so for example, this is by Masanao Kaneta. I'm not going to read you all the names, but whatever. If you have any specific question about it, you can